28 April 1192, the assassination of Conrad of Montferrat, King of Jerusalem, in Tyre. 2 days after his title to the throne is confirmed by election. The killing is carried out by the Hashashin, who we since have shortened their name to assassins. 1503, the Battle of Carignola is fought. It is noted as the first large European battle ever won by small arms fire using gunpowder. 1789, the Mutiny on the Bounty. Lieutenant William Bligh and 18 sailors are set adrift, and the rebel crew returns to Tahiti briefly before setting sail for Pitcairn Island. And Bligh, in one of history's great feats of seamanship, gets all of his men to safety alive. 1869, Chinese and Irish laborers for the Central Pacific Railroad, working on the first transcontinental railway, lay 10 miles of track in one day, a feat which has never been matched. 1881, Billy the Kid escapes from the Lincoln County Jail in Mesilla, New Mexico. And I think they still haven't got all the dimes out of Bob Ollinger's gut. 1910, Frenchman Louis Paulin wins the 1910 London to Manchester air race, the first long-distance aeroplane race in the United Kingdom. 1923, Wembley Stadium is opened, named initially as Empire Stadium. 1930, the Independence producers host the first night game in the history of organized baseball in Independence, Kansas. 1952, Dwight D. Eisenhower resigns as Supreme Allied Commander of NATO in order to campaign in the 1952 United States presidential election. 1967, boxer Muhammad Ali refuses his induction into the United States Army and is subsequently stripped of his championship and boxing license. 29 April, Joan of Arc arrives to relieve the siege of Orleans. 1781, American Revolutionary War. British and French ships clash in the Battle of Fort Royal off the coast of Martinique. 1861, Maryland. Their House of Delegates votes not to secede from the Union. 1916, the Easter Rising. After 6 days of fighting, Irish rebel leaders surrender to British forces in Dublin, bringing the Easter Rising to an end. 1945, World War II. Mrs. Schicklgruber's little boy marries his longtime partner Ava Brown in a Berlin bunker and designates Admiral Karl Dönitz as his successor. 1946, the International Military Tribunal for the Far East convenes and indicts former Prime Minister of Japan Hideki Tojo and 28 former Japanese leaders for war crimes. 1974, the Watergate scandal. United States President Richard Nixon announces the release of edited transcripts of White House tape recordings relating to the scandal. 1975, the Vietnam War. Operation Frequent Wind. The U.S. begins to evacuate U.S. citizens from Saigon before an expected North Vietnamese takeover. U.S. involvement in the war comes to an end. 1992, riots in Los Angeles begin following the acquittal of police officers charged with excessive force in the beating of Rodney King. Over the next 3 days, 63 people are killed and hundreds of buildings are destroyed. 2011, the wedding of Prince William of Wales and Catherine Middleton takes place at Westminster Abbey in London. 30 April, 1492, Spain gives Christopher Columbus his commission of exploration. He is named Admiral of the Ocean Sea, Viceroy, and Governor of any territory he discovers. 1789, on the balcony of Federal Hall on Wall Street in New York City, George Washington takes the oath of office to become the first president of the United States. 1803, the Louisiana Purchase. The United States purchases the Louisiana Territory from France for $15 million, more than doubling the size of the young nation. 1863, a 65-man French Foreign Legion infantry patrol fights a force of nearly 2,000 Mexican soldiers to nearly the last man in Hacienda Camarón, Mexico. 1897, J.J. Thomson of the Cavendish Laboratory announces his discovery of the electron as a subatomic particle over 1,800 times smaller than a proton at a lecture at the Royal Institution of London. 1900, Hawaii becomes a territory of the United States with Sanford B. Dole, yes, the fruit guy, as governor. 1939, NBC inaugurates its regularly scheduled television service in New York City, broadcasting President Franklin Roosevelt's New York World's Fair opening day ceremonial address. 1961, K-19, the first Soviet nuclear submarine equipped with nuclear missiles, is commissioned, and Harrison Ford and Liam Neeson are nowhere in sight. 1980, Beatrix is inaugurated as Queen of the Netherlands following the abdication of Queen Juliana. 2008, two skeletal remains found near Yekaterinburg are confirmed by Russian scientists to be the remains of Tsarevich Alexei and Grand Duchess Anastasia, two of the children of the last Tsar of Russia, whose entire family was executed at Yekaterinburg by the Bolsheviks. The 1st of May, 305, Diocletian and Maximian retire from the offices of Roman Emperor. 1169, Norman mercenaries land at Bannow Bay in Leinster, marking the beginning of the Norman invasion of Ireland. 1707, the Act of Union joining England and Scotland to form the Kingdom of Great Britain takes effect. 1807, the Slave Trade Act. 1807 takes effect, abolishing the slave trade within the British Empire. 1844, Hong Kong Police Force, the world's second modern police force and Asia's very first, is established. 1846, the few remaining Mormons left in Nauvoo, Illinois, formally dedicate the Nauvoo Temple. 1851, Queen Victoria opens the Great Exhibition at the Crystal Palace in London. 1886, rallies are held throughout the United States demanding the 8-hour workday, culminating in the Haymarket Affair in Chicago, in commemoration of which the 1st of May is celebrated as International Workers' Day in many countries. 1898, the Spanish-American War, the Battle of Manila Bay. The Asiatic Squadron of the U.S. Navy destroys the Pacific Squadron of the Spanish Navy after a 7-hour battle. Spain loses all 7 of its ships, and 381 Spanish sailors die. There are no American vessel losses or combat deaths. 1915, RMS Lusitania departs from New York City on her 202nd and final crossing of the North Atlantic. 6 days later, the ship is torpedoed off the coast of Ireland with the loss of 1,198 lives. 1956, the polio vaccine developed by Jonas Salk is made available to the public. 1960, the Cold War. Francis Gary Powers in a Lockheed U-2 spy plane is shot down over Sverdlovsk Oblast, Soviet Union, sparking a diplomatic crisis. 1982, Operation Black Buck. The Royal Air Force attacks the Argentine Air Force during the Falklands War. 1999, the body of British climber George Mallory is found on Mount Everest 75 years after his disappearance in 1924, and they are still looking for Sandy Irvine and his camera. They are up there somewhere. The 2nd of May, 1536, Anne Boleyn, Queen of England, is arrested and imprisoned on charges of adultery, incest, treason, and witchcraft. 1670, King Charles II grants a permanent charter to the Hudson's Bay Company to open up the fur trade in North America. 1863, American Civil War. General Thomas J. Jackson, Stonewall to his friends, is wounded by friendly fire while returning to camp after reconnoitering during the Battle of Chancellorsville. He succumbs to pneumonia 8 days later. 1889, Menelik II, Emperor of Ethiopia, signs the Treaty of Wuchale, giving Italy control over Eritrea. 1945, a death march from Dachau to the Austrian border is halted by the all-Japanese American 522nd Field Artillery Battalion of the U.S. Army in southern Bavaria, saving several hundred prisoners from certain death. 1952, a de Havilland Comet makes the first jetliner flight with fare-paying passengers from London to Johannesburg. 1986, the Chernobyl disaster. The city of Chernobyl is finally evacuated 6 days after the disaster. 2011, Osama bin Laden, the suspected mastermind behind the September 11th attacks and the FBI's most wanted man, is killed by the United States Special Forces in Abbottabad, Pakistan. The 3rd of May, 752, Mayan king Bird Jaguar IV of Yaxchilan in modern-day Chiapas, Mexico, assumes the throne. And if I ever have a chance to change my own name, I think I will call myself Bird Jaguar V. 1491, Congo monarch Nwuku Nzinga is baptized by Portuguese missionaries, adopting the baptismal name of Jaio I. 1715, a total solar eclipse is visible across the northern Europe and Northeast Asia as predicted by Edmund Halley to within 4 minutes accuracy. 1802, Washington, D.C. is incorporated as a city after Congress abolishes the Board of Commissioners, the district's founding government. The city of Washington is given a mayor-council form of government. 1830, the Canterbury and Whitstable Railway is opened. It is the first steam-hauled passenger railway to issue season tickets and include a tunnel. 1951, the United States Senate Committee on Armed Services and United States Senate Committee on Foreign Relations begin their closed-door hearings into the relief of Douglas MacArthur by U.S. President Harry Truman. 1952, Lieutenant Colonels Joseph O. Fletcher and William P. Benedict of the United States land an airplane at the North Pole. 1957, Walter O'Malley, the owner of the Brooklyn Dodgers, agrees to move the team from Brooklyn to Los Angeles. 1978, the first unsolicited bulk commercial email, which we now lovingly know as spam, is sent by a Digital Equipment Corporation marketing representative to every ARPANET address on the west coast of the United States. 1979, Margaret Thatcher wins the United Kingdom general election. The following day, she becomes the first female British Prime Minister. 4th of April, 1471, the Wars of the Roses, the Battle of Tewkesbury. Edward IV defeats a Lancastrian army and kills Edward of Westminster, the Prince of Wales. 1776, Rhode Island becomes the first American colony to renounce allegiance to King George III. 1814, Emperor Napoleon arrives at Portofario on the island of Elba to begin his exile. 1871, the National Association, the first professional baseball league, opens its first season in Fort Wayne, Indiana. 1904, the United States begins construction of the Panama Canal. 1910, the Royal Canadian Navy is created. 1932, having been incarcerated at the Cook County Jail since his sentencing on 24 October 1931, mobster Al Capone is transferred to the federal penitentiary in Atlanta after the U.S. Supreme Court denies his appeal for conviction of tax evasion. 1942, the Battle of Coral Sea begins with an attack by aircraft from the United States aircraft carrier USS Yorktown on Japanese naval forces at Tulagi Island in the Solomon Islands. The Japanese forces had invaded Tulagi the day before. 1946, in San Francisco Bay, U.S. Marines from the nearby Treasure Island Naval Base stop a 2-day riot at Alcatraz Federal Penitentiary. 5 people are killed in the riot. 1961, Malcolm Ross and Victor Prather attain a new altitude record for manned balloon flight, ascending in the Stratolab 5 open gondola to 113,740 feet. 1989, the Iran-Contra affair. Former White House aide Oliver North is convicted of 3 crimes and acquitted of 9 other charges. The convictions are later overturned on appeal. 1994, Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin and PLO leader Yasser Arafat sign a peace accord granting self-rule in the Gaza Strip and Jericho, and I think we can all agree that one's turned out really great. That is all I have got.
That is impressive. I'm actually impressed you made it that far.